And so that starts changing things. And that leads to the sort of the third evolution that we have talked about at bits in the past, but I've been recently digging much more deeply into, and that is this idea of small language
Mhm.
models, right? This idea, right? So certainly the Databricks and the Snowflake announcements recently were focused on this idea of how do we start shrinking these platforms down. Clearly, the work that Apple's doing for completely different reasons, but clearly the work that Apple has been focusing on, and Wired just did an article about this idea of pocket-sized models, because we have to be able to get these things into a manageable form if we want to not have to rely on the cloud to do it. And so what I found very interesting about the Dell NVIDIA announcement is that it's very focused on the sort of edge use case where we're, and not edge as in on the outlying, but literally at the edge of the architectural stack. And that I think is interesting because I do think when we talk about operationalizing it, that's where it's going to happen. And then the last little piece of this idea is that everyone, if I'm bleary eyed because my 1 year old was up last night, so I'm not sure if I already just talked about this or not. But this idea of bundling, that we have to have all these pieces sort of um, pulled together to operationalize it, right? And if you're a
Yes.
CIO, how do we make this process simpler? So I think there's a lot to like. I remain wary of what we just talked about, the hand waving. I think until we get under the covers to see how much of this is differentiated. But maybe it doesn't need to be differentiated. If all I'm doing is making it simpler for you to package and roll out, then that may be enough. If, like you said, Dell is already, if I'm a CIO, my vendor of choice anyway. So
Yes. So we've talked about the Microsoft pushing for the proliferation of models, of course, supported with Databricks and Snowflake and other large vendor announcements. We've talked about how NVIDIA is already seeing 20,000 Gen AI startups working with them. And we're talking about these little models. So I brought a little prop with me, one of my old college textbooks. So when I was in college, I read a bunch of stuff like this. And the big takeaway here is, although yeah, big thick science textbook, but it's about 600 pages. Call it maybe a couple 100,000 words, maybe a million tokens. So we're talking about a couple megabytes of text here, with maybe 50 to 100 megabytes of images. So put about 10 to 12 of these together. That's an entire major. That was my entire chemistry major, curriculum. Shove that into a model, and we're talking about not billions and billions of parameters. We're talking about millions of parameters, and that is a small model. So being able to put a college major's worth of information into a model, or a job's worth of information into a model that is custom built to support this a co-pilot or task-based capability is not actually all that difficult to imagine. We could create a lot of subject matter specific models that are going to be very well tuned to solve specific issues. And that might be the next step forward, if we're thinking about these pocket-sized models. And one of the big announcements that happened recently from a funding perspective is Scale.ai just raising $1 billion to help annotate and label data for models in solving this problem. One of the quotes I found interesting from their press release is from their CEO, who said that our vision is one of data abundance, where we have the means of production to continue scaling frontier LLMs to many more orders of magnitude. But I also think that being able to label data at scale also allows to be able to create smaller models very easily without having to always think about how to get to the data or where the data needs to be further annotated manually.
So I'm bullish on Scale AI, but probably for the opposite reason. So all the press was about the frontier models and about the fact that they were doing this data labeling at scale. And the other part that people aren't talking about as much as they do data generation, right? So one
Yes.
of the issues we're having with the frontier models is they now become so big that they've literally consumed every piece of data we have on the internet, which is a staggering statement if you think about it. Um, and they're like run out, right? And I think it speaks to this a limitation with how far we can take LLMs, at least using traditional training approaches, because really the approach they're using is they're using LLMs to generate data that they then use to train LLMs, and it becomes this recursive loop. And it's like, is that really going to get us further down the road or not? So it is another reason why I am becoming more convinced that the future is actually going to be maybe not exclusively these like itty bitty pocket sized models, but smaller language models, right? Focused, where we're now, instead of taking this like throw everything out at, let's see how we can actually train it with some intent. So I think that that is this really interesting evolution of where this is going. But the other thing I think is really interesting is that they have a huge business model focused on helping enterprises take their data, label and classify it so that they can use it to train custom models. So we've talked in the past about the Databricks and the Snowflakes and these kind of approaches about helping enterprises come up with their models. Well, the gap there is in the data. And so I think Scale.ai has a real interesting future in front of it of helping enterprises bridge that gap.